About at a dinner, Eugene Jarecki, my wife Alexis, and Ariana and I were talking about how frustrated people were that there was no legislative reform and there was no, what you might call, remorse from the big bankers. So we started to just, how we say, bat the fat about what could be done. And we talked about how in past episodes people had sold stock, and in this episode you could get people to move their money. Why would they move their money when they're happy with their services? Because they can get comparable services locally. Everything is insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation up to $250,000, and they could stop this toxic side effect of derivatives lobbying and too big to fail lobbying that's going on by the top 5 or 6 banks that
So name names. Who are you saying which banks should they pull their money out of, and what banks should they put them into? Tell us what community banks are, but name the ones they should pull out.
Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and to the extent that it's asset management, Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs. Those are the 6 that have 97% of the derivatives markets. Those are the too big to fail institutions, or at least a large subset of the too big to fail institutions. But mostly they're the ones who are working very hard right now to stop Congress and the Senate from adequately reforming our financial system, which basically means they want to keep playing and making profit and have the taxpayer pick up the bill in the event of they hit another banana peel.
And explain what community banks are.
Community banks are small, regional, or very much local institutions. Most of their activities, their lending activities and so forth, relate to the local region or community around which they collect their deposits.
And how do you know if you're moving your money into a bank that's not owned by one of the entities you just talked about?
Well, that requires a little bit of research, but we do have friends at Institutional Risk Analytics that's on this website, moveyourmoney.info, and they have rated all the FDIC call report banks, and they've separated out the big banks from the small, or what you might call the behind-the-scenes ownership, and given you a menu. If you plug in your zip code, it gives you a menu of the banks that they rate A or B, which is safe. And like I say, above and beyond that, you have deposit insurance. But those are the local banks that are independently owned, not owned by the big 4 to 6.
And explain what a local credit union is.
Local credit union is like a cooperative in the local community where people put their money in, and essentially they are the owners of that bank or of that financial institution. It's not technically a bank.
I would guess some people might be afraid they'd somehow lose their money, that a lot of banks all over the country failed.
Yes, and yet no one lost any money for deposits under $250,000. So I would say for 95% of the population, if you have FDIC insurance at Bank of America or Chase, you also have it at your local community bank.